What's up, nerds? Welcome to episode 58 of The Bandwagon Fan. This is the show where we talk all things pop culture. I'm Alex.
And I'm Katé. Long time no hear from me for a while. But this week, Alex and I are going to be talking about a film that's been getting a lot of attention. Sorry, it's not Avatar: The Way of Water. But first off, before we get into the film, how are you, Alex?
I'm pretty good. This is the first official day of my holiday break, which I'm just counting as my first vacation in a while. And one thing that I really loved is my first day on break, I got to go to a matinee on a weekday. I don't remember the last time that I did that. Like, weekday matinees, I feel like, are such a rarity these days.
I agree. I mean, I was there with you, so I got to also experience the joy of a weekday matinee. But it was kind of crazy to see the price difference. Because Alex and I, so we saw today the movie that we're going to be talking about, and I looked and it was like if we went just a few hours later, the ticket price practically doubled. So yeah, it is quite a magical thing to get to have the time off to just go see a movie in the middle of the day, which I feel like is actually kind of a luxury, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough people really get to do that. And I'm glad that we did. And it's so close to Christmas. Well, what was funny was Alex and I went to like a crowded mall where this theater was, and yet our theater was like basically empty.
Oh, completely empty. But what was this mall called again?
Oh, so Alex and I, so yeah, a little backstory for our listeners. Alex and I are in the DC metro area. So we're on the Virginia side right now, and we went to the famous Tyson's Corner Mall. So shout out to anybody who knows what Tyson's Corner is. You'll understand the madness that we had to get through to get there. But thankfully the theater wasn't too crowded, which is not saying anything bad about the movie, just probably the fact that it was a matinee.
Well, to be fair, when you walk into this theater, so we went to an AMC, and when you go to the right, there's just like the biggest display ever of the new Avatar, and they have like, they don't even call it 3D glasses anymore, isn't it? Like, it's like, what did they call it? It was like real 3D.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
3D,
come
XD,
on. Yeah, XD, real 3D. So that was a little distracting. And I feel like everyone was like, I'm going to go to this. I have to, which I'm sure is a good film.
But Alex and I decided to be artsy fartsies and see an artsy movie.
Before we even say the name, I'm just going to mention it's an A24 film. So I'll let some people guess for like,
you have like 5 seconds to guess in your brain what movie you think we saw. Well, actually, you know what? The description of this episode will already have given it away.
That's true.
So we saw The Whale. Dun, da, da, da.
What?
A splash.
What a splash. That's it. That's the end of the episode.
This movie, there was no whales. So if you are into all things aquatic, I'm sorry, there's no whales.
Yeah, sorry. I know a lot of you prepared to bring your goggles to the theater, but it would have not worked for this film.
No.
This film, I think what was interesting with this film is, at least for me, this movie has received so much attention. I feel like it's had high praise and a lot of negative criticism at the same time.
It's had attention for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little background for our listeners. So this is The Whale, directed by Darren Aronofsky, famous, guy who makes a lot of like psychological thrillers, dramas, things like that.
Requiem of the Dream, Black Swan,
The
Wrestler.
He's famous for those movies. Really, those are probably his top two. But this movie, so it's been talked about for a while because it actually, so though it just premiered in the US December 9th, it actually had its premiere at the Venice Film Festival all the way back in September. And I would say ever since that premiere, it's kind of been talked about because, it was coming up to the actual theatrical release here in the States. It's another big film for the reason that Brendan Fraser is starring in it, and he's kind of been out of the mainstream media for several years now, which I actually think is one of those things that you didn't really notice until it was talked about. It
Hmm.
wasn't until people said, "Oh, Brendan Fraser's coming back to film," that you really, at least for me, stopped and thought, "Oh, wait a minute. I guess, yeah, he's kind of been out of film for a while, or he hasn't really done anything for a while." Um, so, I mean, I would say those are probably two of the biggest reasons why it's been talked about, because he's back, and then
Well, he also
yeah.
got a 6 minute standing ovation at the premiere, which I don't recall seeing happen very often. So I
Hmm.
think that already that alone got a lot of attention. It definitely caught my eye on wanting to see what this film was about.
Hmm. And also for the fact, like Alex said, this is an A24 film, which I feel like lately A24, I don't want to say like they're killing it or they're amazing, because that's the thing. I feel like it's not so much that they've been making amazing films, they've just been making a lot of films lately. And I think that because of that, you're seeing them more, you're seeing their ads more. And they had such a huge hit with Everything Everywhere All at Once that I think because of that, the name is now even more um, familiarized by people and popular. Um, but yeah, so this is another A24 film. So, like Alex said, gonna definitely be on the more like indie quirky side. I don't even know, maybe indie's the wrong word. I don't want to offend real indie people out there, but it's definitely not going to be. It's not going to be like a Dwayne the Rock Johnson type movie or like a Sandra
Yeah.
Bullock movie. Like it's going to be.
Even though I could see both of those actors wanting to be in one of Darren's films, just because
Oh, really?
I don't know. I don't think either of them could pull it
I
off.
don't think either of those actors could ever be in it.
But I was surprised with like Black Swan with like I don't know. I'm always shocked by the casting that's in all of his films, which is like
I don't
the
know. I
reason I
feel
bring that
like
up.
people like Natalie Portman, who was in Black Swan. I get artsy vibes from her, and like Brendan Fraser too. I could see him wanting to do something kind of like this, a little edgy. Um, which okay, so another quick little spec before we get into this. This is my spoiler warning. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of the things that happen throughout the movie. Alex and I are going to do our best to not say the ending of what happens, so that there's still some mystery involved. So if you want to see this, you're not totally spoiled. But I'm going to first go over a little bit about the brief summary of the film.
Yeah, it's a film that's difficult to discuss without spoiling a lot of its content, which is like a huge reason why we wanted to
Mhm.
bring that up. Tell us a little more about the story.
Yeah, which also, by the way, Alex and I found this out at the end of the movie. This is actually was a play first, which several times throughout the movie I felt that feeling of like, why does this feel like I'm watching a
I
play?
felt that too. Everything felt small. Like it felt like I was standing on a stage.
Mm-hmm. And because most of the movie does take place in one setting, because our main character is always in one setting. So the story is about a obese man named Charlie, and we find out that this takes place in Idaho. It seems like it's rural Idaho, and he seems a little bit agoraphobic, but you find out that it's not really that that's keeping him inside, it's his weight. He is so obese, and due to his lifestyle has increased limited mobility, meaning that he really can only barely walk around his living room to the bathroom or to his bedroom, or the kitchen, and he's stuck to that area. So like Alex said, it feels like it's a stage almost. It feels like, because we're kind of always in one room. We're almost, I would say 90% of the movie takes place in the living room of this apartment. And we find out that Charlie is an English teacher for an online college writing course. Um, and we find out throughout the movie that he was previously married and had a daughter from that relationship, and that he left that relationship to end up one day dating one of his students. And he was previously married to a woman and had his daughter, and the student that he ended up having a relationship was another man. So Charlie basically left his wife by coming out gay. And so there's kind of that troubled background right there. And basically, the main part of the movie is that Charlie is on the brink of death because of his obesity and the related health conditions that have come from that. And he's trying with like one last effort to have a relationship with his daughter named Ellie, who is a senior in high school. And meanwhile, two other important characters. We have a nurse who is a good friend of Charlie's, who we find out is the sister of Charlie's ex partner. And then there's a teenage boy named Thomas, who is a local Christian evangelist who is kind of trying to save Charlie, aka convert him to Christianity so that he can, like, go to heaven and have a heavenly body. Which this whole movie, there's a lot of talking about, one's body, meaning in life, purpose, relationships. It's very emotional. It's a very, very emotional film.
And it's like emotional from the beginning. Like it
Yeah.
just you're sucked in straight into the drama.
Yeah. I felt like this movie. So that's the main. Okay, so that's like kind of our backstory, our plot that we'll work from. Um, but yeah, this movie was definitely an emotional roller coaster, and like Alex said, it's kind of like from the opening scene, you're just like you're right into the movie and right into the feelings of everything. There's not really ever a moment to stop and kind of digest everything that you're watching. Um, which definitely does, I don't know, for me, like this movie definitely held my interest the whole time because there's always something happening, even though it's not like an action movie. It's
Hmm.
like there was constantly like dialogue of
Did it
some
feel
sort.
fast paced to you?
Um, I think it did feel fast paced, and I actually did notice that for being a movie with such a small cast, I mean, you really mostly just have four characters. Charlie, his daughter Ellie, his nurse friend Liz, and the teenage boy Thomas. Which, I mean, again, most of the movie really is a lot of just Charlie, either one on one with Ellie, Liz, or Thomas. It's really all four at once. Um, Even though it's kind of slow in regards to the fact that like not much happens in the movie, there's always a conversation happening throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I felt like it went by like it was a pretty long film, but I felt like I was like engaged the whole time because even though there's a small amount of characters, there are like outside characters that you can hear and like sometimes kind of see the outline or shadow of them, but it's because like you're seeing everything from the perspective of Charlie. So like you don't see what's outside of the door, outside of the door of his house almost ever. So I was always
Mm.
like, kind of like, who's gonna show up? Like, what am I gonna hear? Like, what is that person gonna say? Like, how's Charlie gonna observe
Yeah.
with them? And
Did you notice? So in the movie, there was in Charlie's apartment. There's a window above his kitchen sink that looks out on his like porch area of his apartment complex. I thought it was interesting how we kind of always knew when a character was going to enter the scene because they would show their shadow walking by
mm-hmm,
about to come in. So sometimes like a high drama conversation would be happening or it's like a dramatic scene, but then you would see the shadow of someone walking past the window in the direction of them coming to knock on the front door.
but Charlie wouldn't always notice. At least I
Hmm.
I saw that.
Yeah, I don't think Charlie always noticed, but it was like they shot it in an interesting way that was kind of like we always knew when the next character was going to come in, which again I felt like kind of gave it that play like atmosphere where it's like the
Hmm.
audience kind of gets to see everything, all angles, whereas some of the characters are not always aware of what's going on around them. Um, I mean, it was like a very interesting story. We can go in a little bit more about the characters, like so it's like we have Charlie, and throughout the movie, it's like you can see he has this really sad relationship with food. Like, you know, it's hard to watch, I think, at times. Like, watching this movie definitely, like, well, it's just hard. It's sad. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people struggle with their appearance. And especially, like, with most people, I think it's more usually like the fact that they're overweight than underweight.
Hmm.
And it's really hard to watch this movie because he is like playing an incredibly obese person, the type where it's like like
He's 600 pounds. He's very unhealthy. Um, he is very ashamed of himself. Like like we'd said, he's a teacher online, but he always keeps his webcam off. and I think it's because he's like
Mm.
ashamed of like how people see him. And when you see him eat food, I mean, this isn't the first time that the director has pointed out like addictions, but you can truly see like,
It's like an
yeah,
addiction.
the way he eats, like he's not enjoying this food. Like
Mhm.
he looks like he's suffering
He
in
looks
every
like he's
scene.
suffering, and if anything, there were so many times where I felt like the way he was eating was as if it looked like somebody who wants to die by their addiction. It almost looked like every time he was binge eating in the movie, it felt as if he was hoping that the next bite he would just die and everything would be over. It was almost like he was eating the food seeking for it to just be the poison and let him just be done with this world and dead, because it's like he's such an interesting character too, because he's you can tell he's like really depressed. He's
Hmm.
disgusted with himself. He hates his life, and he never says I hate my life, but at one point he I think at one point he makes it clear that he doesn't like his life because he's trying. There's a scene where he's talking about how he wants to have this relationship with his daughter, and he's like saying, because I just want it to matter. I want something to matter. I want to make something out of my life. And I think what he means is he wants to finally be there for his daughter. He wants to provide for her financially. He wants to provide for her emotionally. And I think he knows his limited time. He knows that he's probably going to be dying in the next few days, which is also really interesting too. That it's really sad that he basically, it's we find out that it's been 8 years that he hasn't reached out to his daughter. I mean, apparently once a month he calls his ex-wife to check in,
But
but
he just gets like minor details about
it's like the
what she's
generic
doing.
check-in. It's the how are you? Fine, okay,
Hmm.
good. And it's like we see him at one point in the movie say like, I want like one thing in my life to have been good, like one good thing in my life. And he's kind of putting that on having this relationship with his daughter. And I don't know, he's so depressed, I
But
think.
you know what's interesting with him being depressed is the other side of it is he's either very depressed or he also has an overwhelming amount of positivity to the point that
Yeah,
it kind of comes off a little toxic,
yeah.
and
That's exactly
characters,
what I was gonna get
yeah,
to.
characters begin to get uh like you get kind of annoyed when you see it, and then like these characters slowly start to get
Mhm.
annoyed with it. And at first you're like, wow, Charlie's a really charming guy, but it's like, oh, like is it's like he's almost too charming, and it's like
Yeah,
he can't see any. It's like he doesn't see any negativity in anybody in the world outside of himself, and I think
yeah.
that's what makes his character really unique.
But it's okay, so this is the weird thing about that. That's okay. These are like the three sides of Charlie, I would say. It's like you have depressed Charlie, who's kind of clearly, self-deprecating, and all he sees in himself is like disgust. But then you have that side of Charlie who, like we just said, is toxic positivity. When his daughter comes over, every time he's like so happy, so sweet, so gentle and kind and charming, and just wants her to love him. And you feel so bad for him because he's being so sweet and so nice. But then there was the third side of Charlie I felt, which was the side of him that seemed frustrated and angry, not at just life, but also like the world. Because
Hmm.
throughout the movie, too, I felt like his character was always making these notes about how he just wants things to matter. He wants people to be honest. He's an English writer, English teacher, and he's constantly, whenever there's scenes of him talking to his students online, he's telling them over and over, like, write what you feel, write what you think, write something that matters. Tell me how you really feel. Write anything, anything. And throughout the movie, it's like there's this other side of him where there's just like this frustration. He hates the mundane bullshit of life. He hates people being fake. He hates, you know, um, people doing things out of societal norms or necessities. Like it seems like he wants people to just be real, and it's like
Whether it's positive or negative.
whether it's positive or negative or whatever, I think he just wants true emotion out of people. And I think that frustration comes from the fact that so much of his life seems to either have been hiding who he really is, being depressed, hiding behind his big body, but then also having to be outwardly friendly and
Mm.
nice because he's so big, so he has to always be apologizing for how much space he takes up and be friendly to everybody because he's the big guy, and having to apologize and be sweet, and it's like I honestly do feel like people who are largely overweight like him, it's really hard for them to exist in this world because they're so ostracized. It's either like people are scared of them, or people are constantly pitying them or feeling upset for them, and they're not getting treated like normal people. They're always being treated differently.
Which is one reason why I think Charlie apologizes a lot in this film. The
Mhm.
most minor thing can happen, and Charlie's like, I'm sorry," and it's kind of overwhelming. But like his best friend in this movie, multiple times is like, "Charlie, like, there's nothing to be sorry about, like here," and like, but I think it's
Mhm.
yeah because like he's just like so used to like being in the way or like feeling like a burden to people that I think his natural instinct is to apologize for
Mhm.
being there, for basically like existing in front of that person. And I found that really sad. And I don't know, just like it really had me thinking. I was like, I think when your self esteem is low, that is kind of a reaction. You feel like you're a burden. So you're like, I want to apologize for being here. Is that
Mhm.
something that you felt like you
Oh yeah,
noticed?
I feel like definitely. I mean, I think when everyone when anyone has like low self-esteem, um that's like I don't maybe we should like research it after this call, but like I feel like that's something people do is over apologize because you
Mhm.
are constantly feeling like kind of worthless. I feel like moments in my life when I've been like really low self-esteem, maybe a little depressed, it's like you're kind of always saying sorry because you feel like, you're a waste of people's time or space, or you're in the way, or oh, I'm so depressed or boring or no one likes me. I should just apologize. And you see that a lot with Charlie, which is then interesting because I would say the complete opposite of Charlie is actually his daughter.
Yeah, his
Um,
daughter.
which, yeah, Alex and I both throughout the movie, we usually don't talk during movies at movie theaters, but oh my goodness, this character. So Charlie was played by Brendan Fraser, as we earlier mentioned, but his daughter Ellie is played by Sadie Sink.
From Stranger Things, Max.
She plays Max from Stranger Things, which is funny because I don't want to say that like how it's like Jerry Seinfeld will always be seen as Jerry Seinfeld because of the TV show, and like Jennifer Aniston is Rachel Green from Friends.
Mhm.
It's like they kind of get stuck playing that character. I feel like this whole movie, all I saw was Max from Stranger Things, because in that first season or two, she plays the incredibly angsty, tough tomboy skater girl. All the kids in Stranger Things don't really swear, and they're kind of like the nerdy kids, and she's the one who's using cuss words and saying "f you" and whatever things like that. And so this movie, it's like she plays Ellie, Charlie's teenage daughter, and it is like from the second we see her character enter this story, she is intense, angry, mean,
So over the top too.
over the top, reactive, insulting, immature. And it's funny because at one point, Charlie's nurse friend Liz meets Ellie, and Ellie's in the middle of just being on a tyrannical rant and rage, and that Liz says, "Hey, you know what? I was a brat when I was a teenager too, but like calm it down." Which I'm glad she said that because I mean the whole movie, whenever her character was in a shot, she was doing the thing of slamming doors, slamming drawers, dropping things, sitting, plopping down into a chair aggressively, you know, doing the thing that teenagers do where they pick up their phone and hide behind their phone and they look at adults and go whatever and have
She was
tone.
she was so over the top though that she felt out of place from the entire movie. I felt like every actor in this film like did a phenomenal job
And felt
except
like maybe a real
yeah,
person.
except for her. She felt so fake
I
and she
felt
felt like an
like
8-year-old to
well,
me.
that's the thing. Yeah, it was really sad too because it's like we get it that Charlie is extremely overweight, and it's really, really sad. And, in a way, it is kind of a little disgusting. It's kind of gross to see someone's body be such a grotesque shape, so large, and it's hard to look at. Maybe I shouldn't have said gross, but it's hard to look at his body and not feel a little sick inside, because it's like you know, he's distorted now, and he sweats a lot, so he probably smells. And it's one of those things where it's like all these things that he's at this point in his size that he can't help it anymore. Like, it is what it is. And from the moment his daughter comes into the scene, she is constantly, constantly insulting him, calling him fat, calling him the most disgusting names,
Taking videos and photos of him.
and then posting them online and making cruel jokes about him. I mean, I, from the moment, was like, okay, maybe this is just going to go on for a little bit, and then we're going to see this, relationship blossom between them, and she's going to like start to like her dad and realize that looks aren't everything, and that
Mhm.
underneath his, skin is a loving, caring person who is trying his best to have a relationship with her in his final moments. But sadly, I would say throughout this whole movie, she almost never improves. I'd say the movie kind of starts and ends with her basically being just a terrible, rude brat to her dad. Um, which also, I mean, to note, her dad did leave her when she was 8 years old and hasn't been a part of her life for 8 years. But we do find out that he tried to be in her life, but the mom, his ex-wife, wouldn't let him. But it's like, I think that Sadie Sink, the actress, took the trope of angsty, abandoned teenager and just turned the dial to 100
I
degrees.
don't think she knows how to act any character outside of what she did. Um, but it's weird too, because it's like other characters in this film say things like they don't even say like, oh, she's kind of bad. They're like, she's evil. They literally say words like her mom calls her evil in this film, and Charlie will still be like, no, she's awesome. And it's like, no, what do you see? Like,
Yeah,
she's not
that was
awesome.
so
That's where like the toxic
interesting.
positivity thing came through. But I think because Charlie knows that his life is coming to an end, he just wants to see, he's like, I can't have like
Hmm.
messed up everything. Like I have to have something positive in my life, and I think he wants his daughter to be that. And
Hmm.
that's why he's like trying so hard at the end to like give something to her, and like
Hmm.
um
Honestly,
have her like be positive towards others, but I think like nobody else
hmm,
can see that except him.
see, that's the thing, is that, like, to me, I think the saddest part of this whole movie is how badly Charlie wants to believe that his daughter is amazing. And he's constantly saying that movie. He keeps saying, because she's amazing. And because people are questioning him in the movie, why do you want to have a relationship with her now? Or what do you see in her? She's a terrible teenager. And he keeps saying, because she's amazing, because
Mhm.
she's amazing. And I feel like he they don't really go into this much, but I feel like the reason why he thinks she's so amazing is the last time he knew her, she was a little 8-year-old. And I feel like, of course, yeah, the last memories you have of your child when they're 8 years old and they're still in that young phase where they're still kind of sweet and cute and you're watching them learn and grow. Of course, you're going to think they're amazing. But these last 8 years that he doesn't know her, it seems like she's turned into just literally the rudest, worst brat.
Yeah, she like takes photos of like dead animals and posts them on social media.
She just, I don't
Really
know, she
weird.
seems kind of sick. And so to me, what's really sad about this movie, not only just watching Brendan Fraser's character be so depressed and, watching him basically slowly die, is also watching him have all these hopes and dreams that his
Hmm.
daughter is going to be basically the one good thing that came of his life, be her. But to me, sadly, I think there is no good thing that came of his life. And I think that's the saddest part. To me, you know what? Like, I guess one of my final thoughts of this movie is, it's like, it to me showed that somebody can live a whole life, and, at the very end, he's looking to see if his life had some meaning, and he's hoping that it's in his daughter. And then to me, his daughter ends up being terrible. So he kind of dies without really having much meaning. And it's so sad because part of them hanging out and trying to reconnect is he's constantly wanting her to like write for him, write how she feels, because he saved this essay that she wrote when she was an eighth grader. Um, and he loves that essay. You find out throughout the movie he loves that essay because he thinks it's so well written. And so it's like, I think he's decided in his mind that she's this great writer. So he's constantly wanting from her to write more for him, but she just won't do it.
But I think it's also because Charlie also only has her kind of show up in the last few days of his life. And it's
Mhm.
like you can't expect to have a relationship magically evolve
In
or
a
even
week.
happen, yeah, within a week. But like Liz has always kind of been there since almost the beginning with him, and I found her I found her kind of like the surprising like close character. She sees Charlie as like an actual human and like
Yeah.
watches TV with him and like treats him like a human and
Buys
like
him his groceries.
cracks jokes, and it's like, but I feel like he was so focused on his daughter that he couldn't even see like his best friend like at the
Yeah.
end, and I found that really sad.
I know, it was really sad because you can kind of tell that out of this entire cast, the one person who's only ever really been there for him and treated him is his friend Liz. And you just made a really good point that it's like, it seems like she has given up so much to be there for him for all kinds of things, so many
Hmm.
needs. She's been there for him. And even in his last few days, instead of spending them probably with her, being grateful to her, he's spending them trying to have a relationship with his daughter. And it's a little sad to see because you can see that Liz is even kind of like, why? Like, telling him, don't see your daughter. Like, why are you doing this? And
Hmm.
I get his desire to see his daughter and try to have a relationship, but like you just said, Alex, it's like, what does he expect? He hasn't seen her for 8 years, and in 5 days, he thinks that's gonna change 8 years of abandonment and
But I think that kind of
pain.
has to do with his toxic positivity.
I know. Yeah, so definitely an interesting movie in regards to just like characters and relationships. I think it was a good relationship movie, other than the fact that I don't know, I just felt like his Ellie, his daughter, just at times it just felt like the trope was so maximized of the angsty abandoned daughter. And I didn't like how mean she could be to him too. Just she was sometimes just relentlessly mean. And that felt just a little unbelievable to me that if I didn't see someone for 8 years, I don't know if I would just jump straight to anger. I feel like I would maybe like have a few more layers of emotions before I skip straight to just
Hmm.
ruthless anger. I don't know. So, just a quick question, Alex. Like, was there anything that you really liked about this movie, or anything you really disliked?
Yeah, I think what I really liked is how well done the character study was on Charlie. I think like I could just tell that Brendan Fraser was truly giving it his all. Like you can see it in every emotion. You can see it in his face. This movie like just made me like want to burst in tears like in every scene that he was in, just
Mhm.
from the way that he like interacts with things. Like you can see anger, depression, and hope all in one character, and that's not like a feeling that I usually feel in a movie. But one of the things I didn't like is I felt like some of the side characters kind of felt rushed. The movie felt too much like a play to me, where like the way people would move and interact in a scene sometimes was a little too dramatic for me. But outside of that, I'm really happy that I watched this movie. I think it was really unique and I think it stood out. How did this movie feel to you?
Um, I agree with you on the it's a really good like character study for Charlie. I think having the representation of a obese person like that would there's not really many films that do, and that make them be kind of like a character that has so much heart. And I don't know, it was like, yeah, like thinking of Charlie, I just feel like I always want to cry. Like I felt like I wanted
Hmm.
to like sob every time we looked at him because he just looks like this really, really sad guy who's trying so hard to be happy and kind to people when it's like he so sad in in his own life with himself. Um, I actually didn't really mind that it felt kind of play like. I think this the main thing I didn't like was really just his daughter. But I've even like thought about it in the last few hours since we just saw it. Like, would a different actress have made it any better, or would the director would Darren Aronofsky still just keep being like, no, I want angsty, like
Yeah, she just needed to be toned down a little. I think
yeah.
if I had to rate this, I'd give this movie. Oh, it's so tough. I'm gonna give it a little higher of a rating. I'm gonna give it like a 4 out of 5.
Oh, okay. And with that 4 out of 5, do you think you'd ever rewatch this?
I would rewatch it, but not anytime soon. I think I would have to save this for like showing it for the right kind of friend.
Hmm. I feel like for me, I I think I'm gonna give it for me, I'd give it a 3. And I do that mostly because again, like I just really didn't like his daughter's character.
Hmm.
And it's hard because I loved Charlie's character. He was just so interesting. I mean, he could have not even had a daughter in this movie. You could have taken out all the scenes with his daughter and just maybe had more of like him interacting with his friend Liz, or him just reflecting on his life even. Um, because he's just such an interesting character. Just watching him in his final days would be enough, I think. So yeah, I lower it mostly because of his daughter
That's fair. That's
and
fair.
that whole relationship. And then just I don't know the ending, which we're not going to talk about because we don't want to spoil it. But I just found the ending kind of like, to me, the ending felt like the kind of ending where the director and the writers don't know how to end it, so they just come up with something really stupid, and they're just like, okay, that's the ending. See, now we don't have to explain anything. Now we don't have to like tie anything up. It's over. Um, and I don't know. I don't like those movies. They leave me like really unsatisfied because I'm like, how can you make something so creative for an hour and 45 minutes, or 2 hours, and then like this is the ending you come up with for the last like minute or two, like um it just I don't know, to me when a movie does like how this movie ends, it just makes me feel like that's how you decided to end it and then roll the credits.
But the counterpoint, if you've seen Requiem for a Dream, I feel like you'll see similarities. Like you'll be like, there's some influences to his old films, but I agree there could have been a little more substance to it.
Like just a
But
little more thought, a little more creativity. So
outside of that, like you gotta give like you got to give this film some props, like the makeup department, like the who did like the prosthetics and stuff. Like they look so real. Like
mhm.
Fraser said, he spent about 4 hours each day and like 300 pounds of makeup and prosthetics, and I just like I think they did a phenomenal job on that, and I
Yeah.
think they need some praise from this film.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I do think that like this movie did really good for like set design. Like it felt like I like the whole movie, like you feel like you're in his apartment. You feel like it's dark, dingy, and like an apartment where like this movie didn't if smell-o-vision existed, I don't even think I need it because I feel like in my brain I already could know what the smell probably smells like. And like I don't know, just like they did a really good job of crafting this world. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't know if I would ever rewatch this. I think that it was just really sad and hard for me to watch most of the movie. It was, to me, it was a very depressing movie. It was in some ways like we said, it was well acted, so well acted by Brendan Fraser. I love his character. I really liked the supporting character of Liz, played by Hong Chow. Um, Even the teenager evangelist kid was kind of interesting. But this movie was just so much for me that if I never see it again, I'm okay. But I am glad I watched it, and I'm glad I got to like support Brendan Fraser, my homie, my fave,
Woohoo!
my
Shout
main
out.
man. But I think that's it for now. So Alex and I, yeah, we will be back next week with another episode where we are going to be closing out the year with Natalia. We're going to do a 3 host episode. So If you enjoyed listening to this episode about the whale, please let us know. Leave a comment where you can. Give a like, give a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you go and see this movie and what you think of it. And just make sure, like, rate, review, and subscribe. And thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.
The Bandwagon Fan Podcast is hosted by Josh Jimenez, Alex Melgosa, and me, AJ Soy. Our show is produced by Katé Smith and edited by your boy, AJ. Our social media is managed by Natalia Kokulia, and our theme song, Lush Waves, is provided to us by Taylor Lewin of _audio. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.